Okay, here we go. So today I'm joined by three people from Victory Village, Amador, California. Can you guys, first of all, introduce yourselves? We'll start Larry.
Yep. My name is Larry Nunez. I am the on-site manager and outreach specialist here at Victory Village.
And my name is Anthony Mullen, and I am the administrative coordinator at Victory Village.
I'm Steve Thorn. I'm the Director of Employment, Veterans Employment at Victory Village.
And are you guys all veterans? I know Larry, you're Navy, and Ebony, you're Army, right?
Yes, it was.
Steve, did you serve?
I am civilian.
Oh, okay. Well, hey, world needs civilians too, right?
That's right. Look at Ed. Ed's a prime
Yeah,
example.
oh my God. That guy, if anybody deserves a military funeral, it's Ed. That guy
Right?
is. So we said Victory Village. Can you give like background on what Victory Village is?
Larry, take it away, man.
So Victory Village was started by Jason and Nicole Mulford. Steve would probably know more about the story behind all of it. I've got a good summary of it. But it is a transitional housing facility for homeless veterans. We do offer other services, VA guidance, compensation claim guidance, housing opportunities. Generally, if there is something or a service a veteran is in need of, if we don't provide the direct service for it, we know where to go to find that service for the veteran. There are a lot of services out there that vets just aren't aware of due to, not to dog the VA, but they don't really do a good job of putting the info and the services out that they do have. So that's where we come in. We act as a liaison for the veteran on behalf of the veteran and get them what they need. I'll let Steve speak on the employment side and, if possible, the backstory behind Victory Village. He's probably more apt to it than I am. So go ahead, Steve.
Okay. Hey, Larry, thanks. So yeah, Andrew, like Larry was saying, Victory Village provides a multitude of services to veterans, and in conjunction, the transitional housing facility, which is in Martell/Jackson. And it's been around for about 8 years. Nicole, who is my daughter, and she and her husband were homeless, and they, rather than pout about it and not doing anything, they recognized the need in the county and in the broader county area to address homelessness in the veteran community. Like Larry said, many services are offered, one of which is employment, and that's my space. I'm just part-time at Victory Village. Employment, and we can get into it in more detail later, but it's one of the many things that we offer to not only veterans, but to the broader community. When we think of our community, we think of the multi-county area in our continuum of care. So El Dorado, Stanislaus, Calaveras, Amador, and veterans can call anytime to Victory Village for the kinds of services that Larry was talking about.
So you don't have to be necessarily transitioning to utilize your services, like even a guy who is I don't want to be insensitive, but stable can give you guys a call and get help with employment and stuff.
Certainly.
Okay.
And employment, and the workshops that we conduct for employment, I think before we started, you were talking about the broader community. The Veterans Employment Workshop, which we can get into more detail, is open to everyone, not just veterans.
Okay. And you said how long? You said 8 years you guys have been operating?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, what kind of facilities, do you guys have? Is it, I know a lot of, homeless shelters and stuff are, open bay sort of, here's a cot and, a bar of soap or whatever. What do you guys offer?
So it's the old Amador Motel. It was converted into what is now Victory Village, and it is basically the rooms, obviously, because it's an old motel. But it's generally two veterans to a room. But we also have family rooms. So if we happen to have a family, husband and wife, a couple with children, or whatever the case might be, we also have a couple of rooms for that as well. So yes, generally it's about two vets per room.
And you guys run on, is there time limits that they're allowed to be there? Is there, like milestones that, people can meet, or, how do you guys run the, because it seems like, if I was a snake kind of in the system, bam, I found a free place to live, how do you guys, stop, or how do you guys keep progress moving,
So we, our case manager, Michelle, I don't know if you've met her or talked to her, but she would be the one that would handle their targets, so to speak, via ISPs, which is individual service plans. And the idea behind those is to set those goals and then meet those goals. With everything going on right now, that is a little more difficult. But the general time frame is to have somebody sustained in themselves out in the real world within 2 years. 2 years is the general limit, but again, there's a lot of stuff. Everybody's circumstances are different, and Victory Village is not in the business of kicking people out. We're going to help them as best we can because we want everybody to succeed. I'm a prime example of that. I was homeless and they took me in, and now I work for them. So, and I always like to tell people, you may be down now, but there's light, and you just got to keep moving toward that light, whether that be little baby steps at a time, or one day you just wake up and go, you know what, I'm going to do this, and then you go out and you do it. So, and that's what we like to help with.
So basically, as long as you keep moving and you're making some effort and stuff, then you guys are there.
Yeah. We're like I said, we're gonna. Sometimes it's whether they want to succeed or not. We're gonna point them to succeed and keep on pointing them to that succession. So,
do you guys have any stats on like the everyone, you always hear the 22 a day for the suicide, you hear different stats. Do you guys know the stats on homeless vets? Like,
we are actually about to do a new pit count. We have not done that yet. I have last year's stats somewhere. As far as how many homeless, is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
So I don't have them offhand, but I can get those to you. So whenever you post a video out, you can read it out or whatever the case might be. But
okay, yeah, because you kind of hear of two extremes, right? You hear the veteran who grabbed life by the balls and is doing incredible shit. And then you hear about the guys that kill themselves, right?
Right.
But generally in between, you don't really, it's, from a veteran's perspective, it kind of seems like, people could really care less, and I remember seeing, guys on the side of the road, I still see it, guys on the side of the road, homeless vet, give me help. And, my first question is this guy really a veteran, right? Because if I'm looking for money, I'm going to write, oh shit, I'm a vet on a thing. But you generally don't hear about it in the media and stuff, is homelessness among veterans, until I'm not sure if are you guys familiar with the band Five Finger Death Punch?
I am not.
So they do rock music, but
yes, okay, I'm sorry, I do know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
their music videos are generally veteran oriented, where either they play military people or their songs are kind of, and they put statistics in one of these videos, and you're just like, holy shit, man, like it's about PTSD, incarceration rates, basically the consequences of being misunderstood by, the overall society. And, we, like you said, we were talking earlier about reassimilating, and sometimes that's, or probably not sometimes, I would say more often than not, it's, the goal is to reassimilate, but it just doesn't happen. I had trouble when I got out. I'm still having trouble. That's been, 10 years. Just because of, what's ingrained in us in the military, right, is, teamwork and, mission accomplishment and stuff like that. And you get out and you're alone. And the hardest mission to accomplish is when you're alone. So I've met, probably a couple dozen guys that have gone through your program or have been associated. What is your guys' like success rate?
As far as total intake, we normally don't keep track of that, but generally everybody who does come through our program does eventually reassimilate and have their own sustained life. So if you want to put a number on it, I would say probably mid-high 90s. That's like I said, awesome. We push to make people succeed. Sometimes when they don't even realize that, they want to, they may be a little defiant or give some pushback, but we're going to continue to push them in the right direction, and generally it works. So,
and do you guys go out and kind of find people, or do they have to come ask for the help, or do you guys...
both?
Okay.
Yeah. So one of the issues, me being the outreach, with COVID, it's a little different, but when I was doing that, vets are full of pride, as you know. We generally don't like asking for help. So whenever I go out and I find somebody that is a veteran, I'll talk to them and, get to know their story. We'll swap stories. It's a good baseline, vet to vet. But at the end of the day, all I can do is offer the help. And whether or not the vet chooses to take that help is a bit out of my control. I'll do my best to say, hey, we've got the help you need. All you got to do is, let us help you. And sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. But we try. So,
we were talking about, you guys being a former hotel. How did you guys manage to, I think a big hurdle would be getting recognized by the VA, right, as an actual organization, right? Because I'm sure there's tons of organizations out there trying to get money from, the government. How did you guys, build something up that was able to be recognized as, actually helping veterans and worthy of, or, for lack of a better term, worthy of being funded, basically?
So there are different grants that the VA authorizes and awards to, specific agencies. We are a 501c3 nonprofit. That's, you can actually look up all actual nonprofits and, what their mission and all that stuff is. So the grant process is actually fairly long. I don't know all of the details. That's a Nicole and Michelle thing. But they look at your application, and then based on your application, they decide, who they are going to award the grant to, based off of your policies, what you do. I think they even add statistics in there, like you were asking about, how your program works and what services you offer the veterans and things such as that. I think the one thing that we are lucky about as far as our location is we are the only organization of our type within our region. So that makes it a little bit easier. I don't want to say we compete with other organizations, but it does help us help other people. A lot of it is word of mouth, though. I do get out as much as I can, KVGC, stuff like that to get the word out. And of course, I have connections with behavioral health, ACA, They also help. But we are lucky in that respect. And, you know, we are generally able to reach out and say, hey, you know, we've got this. For the most part, we do get folks to come in, contact us. Usually they ask for me, which is fine. It's my job. And I'll talk them through it and say, hey, we can offer you this, we can offer you that. But as far as the grant stuff goes, there's a lot to it. I think the packet is like that big. They make it fairly difficult because if the formatting is off, or you know, all of your I's aren't dotted, they'll actually reject it. So Michelle and Nicole actually do a really good job of putting all that stuff together.
Yeah. Just a second, real quick. Sorry. Okay. Sorry. So, you know, I understand. I think why the you know, the government or whatever has to make it so strenuous. You know, because if not, everybody would put in a packet and hope that some money came through their way.
Right.
And so, you know, you have to obviously make sure that these funds are going to the places where they're going to be impactful. You know, and I remember hearing probably a few years ago about, you know, Victory Village, and I was like, man, that's a freaking fantastic idea. You know, taking an old hotel, which is basically an apartment building.
Yeah.
And you know, better than it sitting there decaying, you know, it goes to guys who are living on the street and, you know, you know, realistically just need a hand up, right? Like,
yep.
You know, because like you said, veterans are proud, and a lot of times our ego gets in the way of asking for help. I've been there too.
Yep.
You know, I remember, when I was first married, we were not financially smart, basically.
I wasn't either. I know. Yeah. I got you.
And I got on the wrong side of the VA, owing, you know, you never, a rule in life, you never want to owe the government money, right?
Yes.
Because they want it when they want it.
Yep.
And so it's like, it's really hard to be like, hey, I'll give you a little bit here and a little bit there, because, you know, I got to pay my bills. The government's like, I'd rather you just give it all right now. And so, you know, going around and having to swallow pride and asking, you know, different charities and organizations for help with, you know, power bills and, you know, rent and stuff, it was like, man, this sucks. But then you realize, you're like, shit happens, man, you know, like, you know, am I going to be proud and living on the street, or am I going to, you know, swallow my pride and provide for my family?
Yep.
Which, you know, having met some guys that have come through your guys' program and are now out and, you know, thriving basically, you know, one that, without saying his name, you know, just bought a house, you know, with his wife and his stepson. And, you know, it's like, man, he was, you know, for lack of a better term, extreme camping for, you know, almost a year, I think. And now he's out. He's a homeowner, which is, you know,
yeah, right.
is that not your goal of the whole program? Is
very much, yes. That is very much the goal.
That is, you know, it's insane because, you know, you hear about guys, you know, this might be a VA thing, but kind of program jumpers, right? They jump program to program, you know, getting their benefits and stuff like that. But eventually they exhaust all the programs. But you can tell that some people's goal is not to get better, is not to, you know, succeed. They just want what can be offered to them, you know, with the least amount of work. But you guys, how do you guys make sure that these guys are staying, or not, these veterans are staying, you know, on course and are poised to, you know, basically be successful when they exit your program?
We track their progress. That's what the ISPs are for.
Yeah, there's accountability, and it's not like you just land in here and it's a homeless environment and you're flopping here. You know, each veteran has an ISP, and within that there's milestones, and Michelle tracks and case notes on each veteran. So like Larry alluded to earlier, there's a progression path, ultimately similar to the veteran that you were describing, Andrew. They're not all going to end up being homeowners, but they're all on a path, and that includes employment, that includes weekly meetings, and there's accountability, right? So it's not like they just land in and it's free for all. Plus, I should also mention that Victory Village is drug and alcohol free. There's random drug testing. It's on the one hand, it's very strict in that sense, and it has to be. On the other hand, veterans, and just like when you're in the service, you kind of have the boundaries.
Yeah.
And you operate within that. You talked earlier about teamwork and how important that is. Then you get out and suddenly you're kind of a loose cannon, or not cannon, but you don't have that framework to operate within.
Yeah.
So Victory Village kind of has some of that kind of framework in place. So it's familiar to the veteran community when they're there.
So it's I think as a veteran, I crave structure, right? Like you kind of miss that structure of, you wake up in the morning, you know what you have to do, you know who your boss is, you know who you're in charge of. It seems like you guys can kind of offer that to these guys and kind of help them out. Like, hey, we'll give you 3 hots and a cot, and basically a picture and a plan of what can come next, right? But you have to work for it.
Right.
Because, I think, I was talking earlier about going to, different charities and organizations and asking for help. And I think I would have been more open if they said, hey, if you go rake the grass, we'll pay your bill or something. It feels right to work for, somebody's help. Right.
Right.
And Steve, you could talk about, you do the employment stuff. How, what are some misconceptions about veterans in the workforce that you can maybe, correct?
Well, I get a couple of things come to mind, Andrew. I think most veterans, when they are discharged, have assimilation issues. I think the VA and the service branches make an attempt at that. But I mean, once you're out, you're out. So from the employment perspective, there's a challenge. For example, let's say you're in for 4 years and you get out and you did a job in the service. There's a challenge transferring that skill set and what you learned into the civilian life. And so one of the things we do at Victory Village is we work with the veterans to help them understand what that transition is like. Because there are real things, real skills that you've acquired and nurtured in the service that will absolutely have some applicability to the jobs in the civilian life. But that's a challenge. At Victory Village, we offer a 6-week workshop on employment. We've opened it up to the broader community as well. So last one, and Larry's very involved with this with me as well. Last one we completed a couple months back. We had 8 attendees. One of the things at Victory Village that we do is we have something called compensated work therapy for veterans. And it's a fully insured program whereby veterans can be part of a vet work crew and actually go out and do work in the community and get paid for it. So it helps them learn skills. It helps put money in their pocket. And it's fully, it's like I said, it's fully insured, and it's one component of the veterans, becoming more self-sufficient and learning what it's like to be responsible and working and that kind of thing.
Okay. So it seems like it's kind of, we're taking baby steps, right? This is sort of, okay, you want to work. That's, step one is you have to want to, get up and provide for, you and your family or whoever it may be. And then you guys are showing them what it's like. Okay, this is, a schedule. This is working with a team. This is, meeting expectations. This is, completing the job, correctly.
Yeah.
And then do you guys offer like financial management counseling and stuff? Like, obviously, here's your first paycheck. That now we're not going to Vegas. We are going to put in a savings account. Or,
Right.
do you guys offer that, that help?
Yeah.
So
One of
there
the things,
are. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, one of the things that is required of veterans in the program is to attend a weekly life skills meeting. And that includes financial management, being accountable, being responsible, among many, many other life topics. Go ahead, Larry.
So there are, like he said, we do life skills classes that, again, covers a broad range of topics, and financials is one of those topics. There are also classes that are done in the community. I think it's called Smart Money, if I recall correctly, is a financial management class that is free to attend, and anybody, well, I guess not now with the Rona coaster going on, but can take that class that helps them manage money to the best of their ability. So there's quite a few resources out there, as well as us, of course, that can help with that.
Okay. Yeah, because, I would think, I remember being, 18 and getting that first paycheck, and, you conveniently forget about all the bills that you have to pay, right? It's like, man, I got some money in my pocket. I'm going to go, buy a TV or, a video game console or a car or, something. And then you're like, shit, man, I probably should have saved some money.
It's like when I got out of boot camp, I had all that money stored up from the previous 3 months.
Yep. I remember, that the Marine Corps was, for lack of a better term, my first job, was like, I had done, some under the table stuff, as a teenager or whatever, earned some extra spending money. But I remember checking my account after boot camp being like, holy shit, I had like $2,500 and I was like, man, I am rich. Yep. And it was like, a month later, it's like, man, I wish I had that $2,500
and it
back.
went quick.
Yes. But, it's when you think you're going to die, in a war, you're like, man, screw that. I'm going to spend all my money. And then when you don't, you're like, man, I should have had a savings account. Okay, so we have, Victory Village, we have a former hotel, which is now, basically apartments or, shared rooms. What kind of, how do you motivate these guys to, sorry, I keep saying guys, how do you motivate these veterans to want to keep going, right? To, tell them, because, you guys have all age ranges, right? Which is, I've met guys there that were Vietnam vets. I met guys that were, new Operation New Dawn vets, who was like, that's a 50-year age gap. How do you guys make sure that these guys can work and live together and, eventually graduate the program, or, I know that you have the plans and everything, but how can you actually one-on-one, like, get somebody from basically the bottom back to the top?
It's the goals and accountability. So we do have a give me 1 second. Okay, so we have a meeting every morning that gets everybody up and plans out the day for everybody, whether that be them doing their stuff around here, going out and doing their jobs, because we do have, a couple of folks here that do have full-time jobs. So their issue is just, finding the housing, which is difficult right now.
Yeah.
But we do hold them accountable for all of their plans, which a lot of it is in their ISP. And of course, we'll do our weekly checks or whatever, the check time is that Michelle does. And she goes over it with them and she says, okay, did you complete this? Right? One of their goals. And if they haven't, we'll get the reason why and go from there. Okay, well, let's get this done, next week. And, there's no problem with not meeting a goal if there is, a legitimate reason. And lately there have been a lot of legitimate reasons.
Yeah.
But, eventually we kind of, like I said before, we try to nudge them to make sure that they are staying on track. I think one of the things that we do that really helps too is the life skills classes. It gives people the tools, mentally, emotionally even, to go out and not just have us motivate them, but gives them the ability to motivate themselves. And for the most part, it works pretty well. So.
Sorry about that. I was listening.
No problem.
I got the virus has stuck my kids at home.
Oh, yes, this happens.
Yes.
Yes.
Nobody tells you that when they learn how to talk, they're not going to shut up. No, I'm just kidding.
That's correct. Yeah, it's getting them to shut up. That's the trick.
I remember once upon a time being like, man, I wish he would start talking. And then now I'm like, man, I wish he would stop talking. So, how do you guys, basically get around the issue of, where it doesn't feel like a handout, to where a guy still has to earn, I keep saying a freaking guy, a veteran has to earn what they get, right? Because, it feels much better when you earn something than when it's given to you.
Right.
How do you keep that, that drive to want to earn, what's coming to them, what's coming next?
So, I mean, in the end, it's on the vet. It just is. That's just the way it is. Some people have that drive, some people don't. We can help push them toward the goal of, getting to where they need to be. But in the end, it's just their choice. And for the most part, we've had pretty good luck with that. Don't really have too many issues. So one of the things that we do as far as accountability and, making sure that they understand that when they do get out and have their own sustainable life in their own house or apartment or whatever the case might be, is chores. When you get out and you're living on your own, you're going to have to do those things every day. And so we do assign chores to folks. And one of the reasons for that is because that is stuff that they will do every day when, they get out and live by themselves. And that's something that they're going to have to learn how to sustain. And I like to think it does work. We do have, when our vets leave Victory Village, they're not leaving. They're just moving on from living here. They're always welcome to come back, hang out with our guys, because it's a good community of vets here. And, being vets, we tend to be magnetically drawn toward other vets. At least that's how I feel for the most part, because we understand each other. It's a different family brotherhood kind of thing. And even if they move out and they do need help with anything, we're here. We're not just going to say, okay, you're done, go away. That's not how this works.
So
we're going to be there.
So it's not a one and done, hey, you did your program and, best of luck to you, sort of thing, which a lot of other programs are, you get a kind of a one ride down, and wherever you land is where you land, and we tried our best and we wish you luck, but here's the number to the next, program or whatever.
Our duty is to serve all veterans, regardless on if they're here or not. So, and we live by that, and it's a passion that I have for doing it because of, my story. I understand that, it's not easy to ask for help. I finally did, and here I am. Now it's my turn to give back and do the same for everybody else. So,
And I would assume that helps on multiple fronts. That helps you, that helps them, that helps
Yep.
people, maybe a guy, I almost said it, a veteran that is kind of on the outside, maybe thinking about, man, should I give this, program a shot? Is it worth, my effort and stuff? If you see a team that's working well together, I think naturally you're like, man, I want to be on that team, right? That looks like it could be beneficial for everybody, right? And
Yeah.
That's something that you guys try to promote, right? Is like, unit cohesion and kind of everybody helps each other.
Yes.
That's
Oh, yeah.
something that's important, is helping each other, while helping yourself.
Yeah, we do look at ourselves as a team. It's not just staff, but the entire group of guys here, we're all a team. And whenever I'm sorry, somebody just, okay. Whenever somebody here has any type of issues, whether it be emotionally or physically, we take on that issue with them. I mean, that's the best example of teamwork. Now, I think we don't normally have issues like that, and myself being the leader as far as the vets go here, but I understand all of them. So I know, like, if one of the vets walks up to another vet and offers something, and that vet says no, doesn't want anything, I know that I know how to talk to that specific vet, so I will go and talk to them, and sometimes the answer changes. So, and it does happen pretty often. So generally, I try to take care of a lot of the stuff that, that the vets maybe have going on emotionally or mentally. But in the end, it is a team effort, and everybody here, including the vets, not just the staff, the vets are a part of that team. So
it's, to me, it sounds like, you're bringing them on, and it's not, we're helping you. It's you are helping you, and we are just kind of, holding your hand a little bit. And,
right.
It's kind of, like when, you always hear about, people teaching kids to ride a bike, right? You hold them and they get going, and then next thing you know, they're riding off on their own. And,
yeah,
it's like, man, you didn't even realize I wasn't helping you anymore.
yep. Yeah, it's actually very similar to that. It's a pretty good analogy.
That's a good analogy. Yep.
Yeah.
And that has to be fulfilling on your guys' end, right? Is like seeing a guy, or God damn it, a veteran come in, and they're at the bottom of life's bucket, right? Of they're homeless, whether they have substance issue, or all these myriad of issues. And then you guys get to see them build themselves up, and then basically relaunch themselves into society. How gratifying is that for you guys?
So because of my backstory, I've told you my story, pretty much the whole thing. I use that as a way to say, look, I've been where you're at, and look where I'm at now. I made it. You can make it. Now, granted, everybody's story is different. Everybody who comes through here, they all have a different story, and it's very unique to each individual. However, I think a lot of the stories, one person can understand the other person. So I try to use that. I was in a bad spot, and whenever I go out and I'm talking to people, I tell them, look, you know what? I was where you are. I get it, and I understand, but I, kept moving forward, and I ended up in a good place. I'm where I'm at now because of the people that helped me. So, let me help you, and we'll get you through it. So it is gratifying to me because of where I was. It sounds a little selfish, but I do like the feeling of being able to help somebody else. That's not the reason I do it, but it is a very good feeling. And yeah, so.
Well, I would rather my organizations, that I would, or, if I donate money to an organization, I would rather the workers have the gratification of actually helping somebody,
Right.
than they work there for the money, right?
Yeah.
and there's these huge nationwide programs. I won't say a name, but their initials are WWP, that waste, $100 million on these, executive retreats and shit like that. And you're like, man, how many vets could have been helped with that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if I had an organization with $100 million, I could change the freaking world.
Yep.
And that's just the money that they wasted. That, like.
And another example, both myself and Michelle worked here for a year with no salary, full time. And that was because we didn't have a grant at the time. Now, if that doesn't tell you there's some loyalty there, then nothing will.
Yeah, it's, I think a good organizational, kind of culture when people will work for free, right?
Yep.
When in order to just help their brothers and sisters, right? And
yep.
What are some misconceptions about veteran homelessness, right? Like, because I think the world probably thinks of lazy, drug addicts.
Those are the biggest ones.
Yeah. Okay. So you guys can speak from experience, right? That these guys aren't lazy, right? That,
they're not.
It's just you got dealt a bad hand, right? I mean.
Yeah. So for the two things that I found the most that were the primary issue with veteran homelessness, as far as their individual selves, is mental health. That is one, which is not their fault. And the ones that don't have any mental health problems, it's the pride, like we discussed earlier. Those are the two big ones. Now, yeah, there are the one-offs that do have other, not so good issues beyond that. But those are the two that I've ran into the most. Either they're just too prideful or too afraid to ask for help, or they just, they have other issues going on that they, are just don't have the help for, whether it be PTSD, MST, TBI. And we do try to help them with that as much as we can. And sometimes we do, and it works out. But in the end, it's what's called the veteran's choice. So we do what the veteran would like to do. We can't forcefully. I mean, we could try to convince them that hey, we can get you the help, but in the end, it's their choice. So
yeah, it's you can't help somebody who doesn't want to be helped, right? You can't. You have to be willing to one, ask for help, two, accept the help.
Yep.
Right. Which is easier said than done, right? Especially when pride and ego and especially if you're dealing with guys with mental health issues. And it's not just PTSD, not just TBI, not
yep.
just MST. There's also those are things that veterans I think are more inclined to deal with, but there's also every other type of mental health issue, bipolar, schizophrenia, all these
yep.
issues that plus it's not like once you get one mental health issue you're maxed out. You can have compounding mental health issues, which I've met people that
yes, that is true.
that deal with.
Yep.
Steve, what would from like the employment side, what are some misconceptions about veterans in the workforce that you can kind of put to rest?
Excuse me. We talked about the transferability of skills, which is kind of a big one, and assimilation back into society. Veterans often struggle on the employment side. Misconceptions. You might think a veteran is immediately adaptable to a certain job, and that may not be the case. We offer the customized training for the workshop that we have is veteran specific, even though we offer it to the broader community. So we take the handbook that we give to the veterans during the workshop talks about a lot of veteran issues, such as veterans preference, right? When you're applying for a state, federal, or local government job. We talk about the transfer of skills. We go into that quite a bit. We do analysis on each veteran, what their core competencies are, what drives them, what are their motivators. I know when you said, Andrew, that when you enlisted, see, I'm old enough I could have been drafted, but that's another story. But when you enlisted, you went in, and that was your first job, really, right?
Yeah.
So that's what you knew when you came out. Well, that's, there's transferability there, but that's really not how the real world works at all. So just because you've been in the service for a period of time doesn't mean that you're going to come out and fold into, know how to apply for a job, know how to even do a particular job. So it's almost like you need to be retrained. The service builds people to be part of a war machine, basically. And so, all of the PTSD and the TBI and all of the things that are very common with people getting out of the service, they're also in the civilian population, but not to that degree. So you almost like you have to be retrained.
Yeah.
How to operate without being a war machine. How to become a fully functioning part of society, and kind of leave the veteran past behind you, that aspect of it, because it may not, that can be really, really, really tough.
Yeah, so just to follow up with that, so my first job when I got off of active duty was at the Guitar Center headquarters in Westlake Village. And it was interesting because it was the first time that I had a job outside of the military. So when I'm going in, and it took me a while to get used to it, but so I go in, on my first day, and I'm greeting everybody as sir and ma'am, and they're looking at me like I'm crazy. Like, that was one of the things that I had to get out of my head. These people, they're people. You call them by their names, not by whatever their position is, or I had a really bad habit of calling my boss sir or ma'am. They didn't like that. They like to be called by their name. And it wasn't last names, it was their first name, which was another thing I had to get used to.
Yeah.
So, yeah, right? So there was a lot of things that I had to adjust to. The one thing I did like, well, for that job anyways, I can't speak for any other organizations out there, was they did have the teamwork aspect. It just wasn't as structured as the military. But that made it a little bit easier for me to transition from what I was to what I became. So thankfully that was there, because otherwise I probably would have lost my mind. So, but yeah.
Well, coming out of, I was in the infantry MOS. So coming out, it kind of felt like, that scene in Major Payne where he's like, so there's got to be somebody that needs some killing. Like,
Right.
When they're like, the war is over, you're going to, and he's just like, what do I do now? That's
Andrew,
that's what it felt like.
I don't know if you guys have seen the film Shawshank Redemption.
Absolutely.
Okay, but you remember the old guy who ran the library,
Brooks.
Yeah, and he, I think it was him who got released.
Yep.
And with a matter of weeks, he hung himself.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think about the trauma of him being incarcerated for a long period of time, having, 3 hots and a cot, like you say, right? Every day he had a routine, and then he didn't know how to cope when he was released. It's often, there's some parallels there with veterans, I think. Not that they're going to kill themselves, although there's a high suicide rate, but that assimilation and that growth and that becoming part of society again could be really, really challenging, just like it was for him, right?
Yeah, I often compare getting out of the military to getting out of, prison. It would be, basically you go in for a period of time and the world keeps going around you, right?
Yes, it does. Exactly.
I remember coming home, very rare, we would actually get the leave that we're supposed to get, right? It was generally right before deployment and then right after deployment. And the world, my hometown, it was like, Jesus, where did that building, where did that business go? Where did these houses come from? Where did, even in the 3 months of boot camp, the world changed so much, and you're just like, you know, after 4, 8, 12, 16, 20 years, I couldn't imagine, I can really feel that comparison of prison, getting out of like, Jesus, what do I do now? Your friends have moved on, your family has lived their life, and you're basically starting, a mistake I see is people try to start where they left off, but you can't, because that starting point is now 4 years in the rear view window, right? You have to kind of see where you can fit in, and then, the saying, get in where you fit in.
Yeah, I had the same thing happen to me. Yeah, things change. It doesn't just pick right back up. So yeah, I completely understand that.
Yeah, and I think that is, obviously I'm not a psychologist or whatever. I can't speak to why veterans kill themselves, but I think that that losing the structure, losing the guys that you were with, that you relied on, that you could turn to with your problems, with your successes, with your, the high times, the low times, the in-between times, and it's just gone, right? Overnight, they hand you a piece of paper and they say, thank you for your service, get the fuck off my base.
Yeah.
Basically is, how it goes. And you're now thrown to the wolves. How, what can, I know we can't speak for all of society, but what are some ways that you guys think society could, kind of welcome the veterans back? How could we help them fit in better?
If you look back to Vietnam, when our vets came back, Americans, they were spit on, and they were just absolutely disrespected. So, and then you look at it now, they are now, praised as heroes. So, although we're still behind the curve, I think it is going in the right direction. There's just more work that needs to be done. But it's difficult. And the reason being is because outside of the few, dirty civilians, the ones that are around military, Michelle, Nicole obviously is married to a Marine, they get it. The ones that have not will probably never get it because they don't understand the vet side of things. And at the same time, sometimes vets don't understand their side of things. It's a barrier that is up between, I hate using that word, but it's a barrier that's been put up between veterans and the civilian side of things. And it's very hard to break down a barrier like that when neither side can truly understand the other side. So I don't know if that will ever go away. I don't know if there would need to be, I hate to say it, but like sensitivity training of some sort for, civilians and military or veterans alike. But that's something that I can't, in the near future anyway, see going away. There's just no experience on both sides, so that both sides can come to, that happy harmony to where they both understand each other.
That makes sense. And I've seen that, I've lived that. You like you said, vets are almost magnetically attracted to each other. And a saying that I learned in the Marine Corps was, shared hardships build unit cohesion. You kind of look for the person that has gone through similar things that you've gone through, because you have that shared experience, and it at least puts you, not a necessarily even playing ground, but it puts you're at least on the same field, right? You're on the same, you're playing the same sport. Where it seems like, vets and the rest of the greater society are, we're playing different sports. We're all athletes, but we're playing vastly different, sports.
And I do hope that someday that barrier is taken down a little more. That would be great. But at the end of the day, veterans have experienced something that, they have not. And it's a little bit easier for like you and I, and, outside of like Nicole and Michelle, they get it. But to talk about the stuff that we've been through with somebody that hasn't been through it. And that's just a fact. We want to help everybody, but that's just kind of how it is. So.
Yeah, I remember my first adventure in the VA was, it felt like I was speaking a different language, right? Because military, you speak in acronyms, you speak
Yep.
Very directly. There's not a lot of sugarcoating, and that is, there's reasons behind that in the military, where, if somebody issues an order, you can't be like, but why?
Right.
It's like, we'll talk about this when it's done, when it's over, right? Now's not the time. So I remember going to the VA and just talking and like, again, not to bash the VA, but they do, I have found that a lot of their counselors are possibly still students, are learning how to, do therapy, and, a good way to, get your foot into the door is to work for the government. But you're also dealing with some freaking, really intense mental health issues. And I think a lot of times that requires somebody who's very experienced in dealing with those issues. And that's not always provided. Not to mention the rate at which, your doctors change.
Yeah.
I've, in the past, 6 years, I've had like 5 different primary care physicians, and it's, it's just because the other ones don't work at that clinic anymore. The revolving rate of, healthcare workers and stuff is so high that it's, hard to talk to the same person twice, which makes, groups and organizations like yours important, because you can see the same face each time you go in, and you can build that relationship, and you at least know that if you're having a shitty day, I can stop in at Victory Village and talk to Larry, right, or Steve, or whoever else works there, which, a lot of organizations, like we said before, is, once you graduate, hey, congratulations, you're on your own.
Good luck. Yeah.
Or we'll send you an email when the funds are running low, and maybe you can donate to us.
Right.
That sort of thing. How do you guys, you've said that you guys have grants. How has the community reacted to what you guys are building and have built so far?
So this is one of the things that I like to talk about, is the community. I've been through a lot of, in the Navy, you go freaking everywhere, right? I've been to like 40 something states, not necessarily stopped or anything, but been through, and I've been through a lot of communities. This has been, and maybe it's because it's rural. I don't know. I'm a city guy, but I ended up here. But this community is amazing. The support that we have, and that, the community has for each other, is absolutely amazing. I work with the county. I work with ATCA. I work with all of the other nonprofits. And they all have their own outreach teams for homeless. It's a really big topic right now in our county. And we all work together, and we go out and excuse my French, but we get shit done. And we have a good familiarity with each other. I consider most of them my friends, not just associates, and which is a good thing, because that way it's a good, not only good working relationship, it just makes that relationship that much better. And so I have, whenever somebody goes to, say, ATCA, well, it's closed right now because of, the Rona, but they'll go to ATCA, or they'll go to behavioral health, and they'll say, hey, and one of the questions they ask is, are you a vet? They ask that question almost right off. And if the person says yes, they contact us. And then we take it from there, and vice versa. If we have, we'll help civilians. We're not going to send civilians away because they're not a vet. We're going to get them what they need. They may not be able to apply for our transitional housing, but we're not going to leave them high and dry. In fact, that happened, a few days ago. I called everybody. I'll call ATCA. I'll call behavioral health. Anybody that I can get a hold of, and they'll be like, yeah, send them over here, or we'll come over there and we'll come talk to them. So this community is really good about working with each other, and it's probably the best community I've ever been in.
One thing I wanted to mention, which Larry might be too humble to mention, but Victory Village was just recognized as a nonprofit of the year for 2020.
For Amador County or for
Yeah.
like? Oh,
Amador County.
that's
Yeah,
awesome.
it's just a nice acknowledgement. And I can also affirm and validate that the team at Victory Village, they have their eyes on the prize. They're, we are a nonprofit completely, and veteran focused. Like Larry said, a couple folks work for a year without salary. So it's the real deal. And I'm just a part-time guy, on the periphery, although I am considered part of the staff. But like Larry was saying, we're part of a broader community. We don't do it all by ourselves. But I think it is important to highlight that recognition came through. It was really nice.
Yeah, that's awesome. And from what I've experienced of you guys' organization is you guys deserve it. There's a lot of people, a lot of organizations that give great lip service, but you guys follow through. And, you guys, if you say it, you're going to do it. And you're, like we said before, you can't make the veteran, take the help. You can't be like, here's your job, show up at 8 o'clock and then drive them there and then, make sure they're there all day. You have to give these guys the freedom, right? Because you're not always going to be there. Yes, you are there as a fallback or as a support system, but you can't literally drive them to work every day and then be like, okay, let's sit down and do your bills. At some point, these freaking, geez, I'm going to haze myself later. You can't make these veterans help them, or you can't make them do, what is best for them, right? Ultimately, it's their decision.
Right.
But real quick, I want to touch on how do you guys, having worked in the nonprofit sector and kind of dealing with guys, freaking veterans at their lowest, it can wear on you personally, right? Of like, man, like you start thinking about the guys like that you could have helped, or how do you guys make sure that you're not getting dragged down by the negative aspects of the job? Basically, how do you make sure that the people that work there are taking care of themselves as well?
Self-care?
Yes.
So we actually had a major crisis that happened to a vet. And this is the first time I've ever had to deal with something that in depth. Luckily, we have training for it, so we know what to do when something like that does happen. QBR training, by the way, great training. I'll probably shoot out a link to everybody about it, but it's good. So if you want to check it out, please do. So it was not only draining on the vet. Obviously, it was because the vet was going through the crisis. Turns out it's quite draining on the staff as well. Now, that's not to say that, I'm unhappy that it happened or all that stuff, because that's what we're here for. We're there to, help out and help them through the crisis. But I didn't realize that it would be that draining on me, both emotionally and mentally. And Michelle and Nicole said the same thing. Jason, he helped us with the crisis as well. He's our founder, for those that don't know. So we actually had a bit of a debriefing after the incident. After the vet was okay, and turns out he was okay, and he's doing so much better now. I just want to put that out there. No names, but he's doing absolutely amazing, and he's going in the right direction. So we had a bit of a timeout to debrief. We went out, just had a lunch, just to all of us, the staff, to just go and get away, just to help us breathe. And so that's one of the things that we do. We'll take the time out to go out as a team and just get away and just let it all flow away from us. Talk about whatever we want to talk about is probably the best way to let that stress go. So yes, we do take self-care as a staff, and of course everybody has their own thing that they do on their own as well. So yeah, we do that stuff, and we kind of need to. Because self-care is just as important as helping other people. So,
yeah, like I said earlier, working in with, not as in depth as you guys, but it drains on you because you're like, man, like I wish I could, help this guy, and you're going to put all that effort into helping this person. And then you realize like, man, I'm giving more than I have in my reserves, right? It's like, if you beat yourself down too far, you can only, kind of recover so much.
Yeah.
Before the next person is asking, and you're like, okay. And then, if you are in the mindset of helping people, a lot of times you forget about yourself until it's too late, or, something major happens. So, self-care is very important, I think, to everybody in the world, is to take some time to yourself, kind of, brain drain and, recover. So, we're coming up on just over an hour now, so we'll wrap it up shortly. What is some advice that Larry, coming from the background of being homeless and getting into this program and now working for the organization, what is some advice that you would offer to, PFC Joe Schmo that just got out and has nothing really on the horizon, and is, we'll say, facing down, I could be homeless, I could be, not to say that homeless people can't be successful, because obviously you are an example that you can be, but there's at one point we all have to make the choice, right? Of, are we going left or are we going right? How would you, what is some advice that you could give to that, person to help them better themselves and society?
Well, first, I'd like them to contact us. That would be a good start. And then, of course, everybody's different. It would depend on what the issues that Private Joe Schmo is having. But I always like to use, whenever a vet is going through any issues, the best way to go about, in my experience, something like that, is to use your own experience. So, I'll use my experience, or, where I was, as a way to tell them, I made it. Why can't you? Or not why can't you, but you can too. Just, let us help you. Let's see what you need, and we'll get you pointed out there, and we'll get you going in the right direction, and get you back on your feet, assuming he's down, and go from there. Everybody's different. I couldn't tell you the number of different situations that I've come across that have been successful and we've been able to help people with. So there's always light, I guess, is the best way to put it.
Yeah. I think that's very similar to what I used to tell people is, you're facing a choice. You can give up, or you can not give up. Right. If that's basically two choices, right? Is you either stop living, or you find a reason to live and you keep going.
Yep.
Which, is, people don't like to talk about it as, we need compassion and we need love. Well, sometimes you need some hard, somebody to come talk to you kind of in a more matter of fact, like, hey, if you keep doing what you're doing, you're going to be dead or in a ditch somewhere, or we can help you, sort of, which is an important distinction. You guys aren't doing it for them. You guys are helping them to do it for themselves.
Exactly.
Which is very important, because it's very easy to take a handout and let somebody do something for you, but it's a completely different game to take advice and then act on the advice in the best interest of you and your family.
And sometimes they don't even realize that they're doing it themselves.
Yeah.
And that's where the good thing comes in, is because, somebody will come in and say, yeah, I need help, doing this. And, once you get into it, you see, and, say you get into a computer and you log in or whatever to whatever website they might be needing. And you go, okay, so you see this right here? And then that's when you got them. They're looking at it and they're starting to see it. So like things like that, they don't realize that they are now helping themselves. It's not me doing it for them. So yeah. That's a really good example. Yeah.
And then, Steve, from the employment aspect, what is some advice that you could give, as far as, I guess maybe staying, proactive, but also staying on the positive side of, you're not going to get every job you apply for. You may not get the job that you want or feel that you deserve. What is some advice to, these veterans that are re-entering society and are now going to be going back into the workforce?
Well, like I was saying, Andrew, we cover a lot of that in our workshop. What motivates you? What are your motivators? Transferable skills. We talk about those kinds of things, but kind of abstracted even from the workshop. Employment is just one aspect of challenges to veterans. We exist to support the veterans and the broader community. That's really what we do. I don't really know what else to say. Veterans need to understand that the support exists not just at Victory Village, but as Larry was talking about, the Amador and our surrounding counties, we have a very supportive network in the community. And if they just can humble themselves and reach out for help or ask questions, the support structure is there. And we want to help veterans before they fall into bad patterns in their life. And it's not necessarily that they're going to, but the community, the broader community is available and ready to help veterans, including Victory Village.
So one of the things that for my experience was when I was going through everything and I wanted to become a statistic, I realized that in my depression, the one thing that I thought I didn't have was purpose. So once I got here and they brought me on board, I had a purpose. And that took me away from all the well, I mean, not necessarily all the depression, but it gave me something to look forward to and a goal to do every day. So I think employment is actually a lot more important than people give it credit for. If somebody is homeless and I lost everything and all that stuff, and then they end up with a job, that gave them purpose. Now they say, okay, you know what? I have a job, I have an income. Now I can start to get everything else back together and get back on my feet. That is a big, big thing. Employment is absolutely massive when it comes to that type of stuff. It was for me. And I know a lot of other folks out there that go through something similar. Once they finally got that job and they excelled at that job, everything else followed. And everything got better for them. So I think employment is a lot bigger than people give it credit for.
I would agree with that. It's also, again, being part of a team, having people that rely on you and also people that you rely on. And, obviously, financially, it requires, our society requires money, which, generally means you have to have a steady employment or at least be connected to getting the benefits that you are owed or that you have earned. Larry, you can speak as having gone through the program. What was, I'm sure that when it was first told to you, there was some reservations of like, what are some of the barriers that stop, homeless people or homeless veterans from getting the help or seeking the help that they may be entitled to, have earned?
So in my case, it was pride. When I was going through all of that, I would, thinking back now, thanks, Andrew. Thinking back now, I would rather have become a statistic than ask for help. That was the problem. And of course, when I finally said, okay, I swallowed that. Again, there's more to the story, but I finally swallowed that, and I did reach out and got the help. The one thing that was probably the most scary was the change, the unknown. I didn't know of this place or what it was. In fact, I was given options of different ones. Thankfully, Dave Zielinski, if he ever happens to see this, he was the one that reached out and gave me the choice of, it was 2 different places that I had to pick, and he recommended Victory Village. So I went with his recommendation because I had no idea about either of them. And yeah, the one thing that was the most frightening to me was the change and the unknown. Thankfully, I did pick Victory Village, and they were able to help me, and I'm thankful for it every day. And now I get to help with the same type of assistance that they gave me. So change, it's probably the biggest one. It's very difficult for, I can't speak for other veterans, but for me, change is extremely difficult when you're used to so much structure from the military. So yeah, that would be mine.
Is it also you are kind of, not losing control, but you're handing kind of control of the ship over?
Yes.
Because, personally, if there's a situation, I want to be in control of it, right?
Yep.
And that is, I think, something that is instilled very early on in the military, right? Of if something is, for instance, if there's a rifle laying there, I want to be in control of it. If there is a convoy, I want to be in control of it. Because then that you or in your mind, you think that you can control what happens, but in reality, circumstance is what controls, what happens. But, as a veteran that has struggled before, it was like, nope, I'm in control. I'm going to go down with the ship if it goes down. And then, I think somebody told me is like, or you could not go down with the ship,
Right.
we could save the ship. And it's like, oh, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of veterans think in the mindset of doom and gloom, right? Of
Black and white. Yeah.
Yes. And there are different shades. There are colors. There is, a way to do things without, being, all moto and, attack. But, saying that, we are almost an hour and a half. Hopefully you guys can come on again and, talk veterans issues, any updates. If Larry, you can send me some links and stuff to how people can contact you, whether it's to support you guys or to get some veterans to be helped by you guys, or to connect, and then we'll post that along when we post the video. My goal with this whole thing is to be symbiotic with any organizations that we talk to. You help me, we help you guys. We're all working to the same goal.
Yep.
Of stopping the 22, stopping the homeless, stopping veterans from not living the life that they are capable of living.
Yep.
Your service doesn't end when you get out of the military. Your service, ends when you choose to let it end. So I want to thank you guys for coming on. I want to thank you guys for the work that you do. I know that it's not always easy or as fulfilling as, it's not always clearly as fulfilling as it could be. But you guys are making a difference, and that's what's important. A positive difference too, because plenty of people make negative differences, and those people suck. So I want to thank you guys for coming in. Thank you for your time, and hopefully we could talk again soon.
Thanks for having us, Andrew.
Absolutely. Thank you, Andrew.
All right, thank you.
So I'll reply back to your email.
Okay.
Go ahead.
No, go. That's fine.
Oh, I was just going to tell you, I'll reply back to your email, and all of the contact information is in my signature.
Okay, awesome.
And Steve can do the same thing. I think he had the signature.
Okay. And I'll let you know when this gets posted. It should be probably, I'm thinking, today's Tuesday, probably Friday.
Okay.
Probably be out Friday. And like I said, I look forward to talking to you guys again. And thanks for all your work.
Thanks, brother.
Thank you, Andrew.
Take it easy, be safe, and
You too. Wash your hands.
yeah, keep on keeping on.
All right.
Right.